to episode 23 of the Wonder of Stuff Vodcast, broadcast live on Google Hangouts on air every weekend. This week it's a bank holiday in the UK, so it's a Monday evening. And as always, it's the place where you'll find news, information and commentary on science, engineering and technology from the past week and beyond, and anything else that interests us from inside our tiny little human brains. As ever, my name is John Gardner, and to help me out on the journey to knowledge, we've got my colleagues, as always, Richard Smith and Ross Davidson, who hasn't quite come back there. Is he coming back? No, he's not. Anyway.
Strange, because I can't see either of you two.
All right. Say hello, chaps.
Hello, chaps.
I can hear you. I just can't see you.
Hello.
Hello. Let me see why I can't see. No, it's not from this end.
Maybe try coming out and going back in, Ross.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are, I can see you. Can you see me?
No. Your microphone is going mute, unmute, mute, unmute.
Ah, bloody technology.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, I quite like your little. Hey, he's back.
Well, hey, I didn't do anything. Oh, well.
It wasn't me. Anyway, right, so we're going to kick off this week on this wonderful bank holiday edition, being the 4th of May, a date that you'll have to remember for later on in the show when Ross does his bit. But we're going to start off with... Oh, Ross has appeared again. What's happening? Oh, no, he's gone. That's it. Right, anyway. Right, luckily, the first one is for Richard, so we're going to kick off with Richard's, and hopefully Ross will return in a slightly more animated form, but perhaps not. Anyway, Richard, so the first one is you're going to talk about earthquakes. It's in the news at the moment, and why some are more deadlier than others, specifically
yes.
the one that has been in the news.
Yeah, just before I do, I'm going to continue a theme of what I've been doing of showing you strange creatures.
Why not?
So I've just seen this one today. See what you think of this one. And can you see that?
Hang on.
Right, so hang on. That's as high quality as it'll go. But
right, is that a leech of some sort? Oh.
Isn't that weird?
Oh, wow.
I think it just shoots out.
That is strange. Is that its intestines or something? It's shooting
No,
out?
that's its mouth parts. That's what it tastes with. Yeah, it's a ribbon worm.
Wow.
I thought I would just.
No, that's cool.
It just looks like something.
Have you got a complete compilation of all these weird and wonderful creatures from the world?
I literally saw that about an hour before I came on. And I thought.
Literally or figuratively? No, that was. Did you see that, Ross?
I did, yes. Yes,
Richard's strange creatures.
Yes, I saw that today actually. So what is it? Is it like a sea slug or something?
It's a worm, yeah. It's the family of. I'm not sure if that one's ocean dwelling or not, but most of that family of worms seem to be ocean dwelling, yeah. But ribbon worm, that one's called.
Lovely. So
but yes, onto the
earthquakes.
Yeah. So obviously we've had this really bad one in Nepal. I'm just gonna share this. So this one's had a lot more casualties than previous quakes have had. I don't know, can you see that very clearly? Is that full screen for you?
Yes, we've got that. Yeah.
So
there's been over 6,000, hasn't it, so far?
Yes, I think it's now 7,000 and more than 14,000 injured. No doubt the death toll will continue to rise. Just with it being a poor country, the figures often go dramatically up, don't they, as time goes on. But it was 7.8 on the moment magnitude scale, so it was a big quake. but some of the reasons that it's been so deadly is not just the magnitude, but it had 35 aftershocks of 4.5 magnitude or greater on the same day. So it was a bad day, not just that single quake, but also the depth. So it was only 14 kilometers deep, the main quake. So that's very shallow for an earthquake. So that makes it so much more damaging to buildings and populated areas because it's close to the surface. So its effect on the surface is a lot greater because of that. And also part of the reason is where it is. So that picture there was of all the three main plates from Indo-Australia converging in one place, which is what's formed the Himalayas in the first place over the last 50 million years. But this is the ongoing cause of quakes in that region. So I've got another picture here. I'm just going to show you just the scale of earthquakes in that region.
Because I think it was the epicenter was only about 4 miles away from Kathmandu, wasn't it? And there was the other countries that you saw on the map there, Bhutan and Tibet. They all had, you know, we have seen some photographs and some images coming through from those countries, but it was because it was so close. The actual epicenter was so close to Kathmandu that so much damage.
Exactly, yeah. The fact that the fault line runs along densely populated areas is part of the problem. You can see there, obviously, this is a highly populated area of the planet, and this is where earthquakes occur. So you can see, obviously, the earthquakes are occurring along the fault lines. So you can see why that it's such a hotspot for them. But also just the local geology. You can see there that where houses are built, landslides and the earth giving way, the towns and villages are very prone, and of course they're shanty towns, and the construction of the buildings is nothing like earthquake proof for an area that's so prone to earthquakes. So that's obviously compounded the problem as well.
It's obviously compounded the rescue as well because of, like you say, they've just found a space. Now that space may have been on the side of a hill and plonked a house there. Now you can't get a plane in, anything like that.
They're saying they can't even get the helicopters in. The helicopters they're using, or I think they were saying there were some Russian helicopters, but they're too big to actually get to some of these places, even by helicopter.
Yeah. So potentially it's a worse situation than a more densely populated area that's on a flat, because at least then, or at least all together, whereas this is densely populated but spread out, if you like. So it's densely populated over a wider area. Just back on the earthquakes, I guess you guys probably already know this, but obviously this is the strain that builds up, and then the Earth's crust gives away, particularly along old fault lines. So this area is particularly bad for it because the plates are colliding at high speed relative to other plates that collide elsewhere. So the Earth's actually during the earthquake those two plates were colliding at up to 3 meters. So 3 meters of movement, which is massively significant for such a large plate. So that's it really. Those are the factors, and obviously it's very tragic. And
do you have you got any stats? I mean, I'm just trying to desperately think about some of the stats that I heard on the news about when the last big earthquakes, because obviously the earthquakes are happening all the time, all over the place, even in our country. But over there they're substantially greater. And I'm just trying to think. I think the last one was it. I've got 1930s was in my mind for some reason.
It was 1928 or something like that, wasn't it? I did read it. I haven't got it in front of us, but yeah, that was the last one in that region of that magnitude was 1928. So might have that wrong, but it was around that time, 1930, 1920. So it is the biggest one they've had in the Nepal region for a long time, but obviously in the wider area, they do get quite a lot of quakes.
I was watching a great video that someone had posted of, I think it was the US Geological Survey had done a video obviously they've got earthquake detectors all over America, and it was a map of America, and it showed sort of as the quake went off in Nepal, you could see the sort of wave of the detections like going across the whole of America. And it was one of those things where, I mean, obviously they're very, very sensitive instruments, but just the idea that you can detect this across the whole world, gives you an idea of the sort of magnitude of the energy that's getting released by one of these things, one of the big ones.
I've actually seen a seismograph in action, and it was it's just like you say, they are sensitive. In fact, what he did was the guy who was showing me it, he set one up, and it's just basically like if you, I don't know whether you're aware of a heavy goods vehicle, they have a tachograph, which is a single, which is like a little pen on it, which just draws constantly, and this is going around all the time. Well, it's similar thing to that. And he set it up, and then he got one of his colleagues, to go out of the building and go, into the next building and start hitting things. And it was going off the scale. And it was like, it was really impressive.
Wants to turn it down a bit. Too sensitive, wasn't it? Next.
Oh well, obviously that was it. It was there for to show people. So obviously he's got the sensitivity over right up, so you could see. But
that's, I mean, something like that sensitive, you'd have like well away from a populated area, wouldn't you? So it would be turned right up, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's why you've got so many on that picture before that I showed with the yellow dots. Obviously, the instruments don't miss a single one, do they? So you can get all this. The fact that they know all the aftershocks going right down to point something of a magnitude. So they've got them all there. It was 1934 was the last one, John.
Right.
It was an 8.2, and that killed.
Can you put that last image back up, the one with all the yellow on?
Yeah.
Because I was just trying to pick out some of the countries, and it's like huge. There's like Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines. They're all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess. Well, I don't know this, but I guess obviously it follows Indonesia and all those islands. So they're on the fault lines, presumably because those islands were created by the faults in the first place. The land masses arose due to those faults, I'm guessing. Because they certainly track them, don't they?
Yeah, and you've got Japan, and well, obviously that the Fukushima
Let's just
one.
not bother in showing you the ones that occur in the ocean. But no, there definitely is. There's definitely dots there where there's no land, isn't there? So.
Yeah. The other thing to remember about earthquakes as well is when you hear like the magnitude of them, say it's a 6.9 or a 7.9, it's a logarithmic scale as well. So, like, you have like a 7, and then an 8's like 10 times the size of a 7.
Yeah.
So
it is.
It sort of gets so much bigger. I don't know how big was this one. Do we know?
7.8.
7.8. Yeah.
But also, it's a lot of the media coverage they were using Richter scale. Now I thought the Richter scale went eons ago.
It's not called that anymore, but I think it's the same measurement.
The same scale, right? It's like Celsius and centigrade, is it?
I think so, yeah.
That type of the same scale but different. I see. Interesting.
I think it's probably one of these things where I don't know, the Richter scale only went up to 7 or something, so they've turned it up.
Yeah, moment magnitude scale is the one that it's been reported on from the site that I'm looking at anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Well, the mainstream media still use Richter scale because they know that everybody has an idea of what that is.
Yeah,
it's already ingrained in everybody's psyche, I guess. But yeah,
when was the last big earthquake in Los Angeles?
Oh, they're due one, aren't they?
Yeah. It's one of these things. They're always overdue something. When they talk about these, they talk about things like the Yellowstone National Park.
The Giza.
That's one big thing about earthquakes, is that no one's worked out a way of predicting them. There's no reliable way to predict them. They know roughly when they're going to occur, so they can say they're overdue, but I think people will hear, oh yeah, it was. Why did they knew it was coming? Why didn't they get people out there? And it's like, well, they know it's coming, we just don't know when.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. Give or take 300 years, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, there's been all
maybe
sorts
not
of things
with
about.
certainly with Yellowstone, it's
Yeah,
like that, isn't it? It's overdue, but it could still be a few hundred years before it actually goes off. Yeah.
exactly. But yeah, in terms of earthquakes, there's been all sorts of interesting things about possible ways of predicting it. There was one I was reading about, like lights in the sky, like sort of like localized aurora type thing, which is a bit anecdotal, but there's sort of some theories as to what might be causing it, to do with like rocks being squeezed and piezoelectric effect creating magnetic fields and stuff. But there's been no experimental evidence. Obviously, it's difficult to be in the right place at the right time to detect this. And then obviously I heard of things like animals, birds flying off and stuff. But I think that's more very, very briefly before it happens. They'll feel the sort of rumblings.
It's interesting because that localized aurora, which I've seen it attributed to people seeing this immediately before earthquakes happen. But I've also seen it. You get a similar effect, and I guess it's the same thing with positive ions and before lightning strikes. When you see, I know you get them on top of antennas and stuff. You get this aurora effect.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be
basically, if you see aurora, run.
Yeah.
I guess earthquakes have got to factor in that because they occur along old fault lines. I guess every time you have one, you have to factor in it then becomes more likely to have another one. So it's probably the opposite of it being overdue, in a sense that the less of them you have, the less you're going to have, whereas the more you have.
I don't know. I mean, in a way, an earthquake, it releases the sort of pressure. So, I mean, the reason you'll have more is because there is a fault line in the first place. But, if you have one, you're then less likely to have another one sort of immediately after, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Because that sort of strain will have been released. But, I mean, it's obviously they're measuring the rate of the plates so they can work out how often.
I just meant as a predictor. I guess the actual release of energy is going to lessen in the short term. But I mean, as a predictor of where they're going to occur in future, I guess
what you want to do is avoid building massive, great big cities on top of a fault line.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what I was just going to say. You can always reduce the amount of energy by moving away.
Well, you can as an individual, but the human race would be struggling at this point, I suppose, because you'd be abandoning most of Southeast Asia, wouldn't you? Which is where a third of the world's population is. So
easier said than done.
Yes. Right. I think we should leave it there. I know it's a good topic to discuss, and it's relevant, but obviously it's fairly tragic that it's happened recently. But will definitely happen again, because that is the nature of these things. Right, I'm going to go on to my topic now. Now, my topic is I've had this stored up for a couple of months, so it was bang up to date when I was the research was bang up to date when I originally noted it, but it's gone past its sell by date now, but still interesting, I think. It's about chameleons. Chameleons are one of those creatures that, for some reason, the humans have really taken on to, and I have a picture in case you're not aware of what a chameleon is, but you've been living under a rock, like with a chameleon.
Like a chameleon.
So here is a chameleon, and I'm going to play you a little montage. And the thing about chameleons is that as humans, it's their color changing effect that I think most, and the 360-degree eyes as well, because they're cool, and their little sticky feet as well, they're cool as well. But it's a colour-changing effect that's probably most we relate to a chameleon, and
they do a good dance on hot rocks as well, don't they?
Yes, and those as well, and hot rocks. So hot rocks, weird feet, and the 360-degree eyes, and their colour-changing. So I feel like somebody from the life of Brian. What have the Romans done for us? What have chameleons done for us? Anyway, so I'm gonna play you this, because what we're going to focus on for this little discussion is the color changing techniques, right? So I'm going to play you this just because it's cool anyway. Hopefully you'll get it. In the corner you'll see this this picture-in-picture display, and then this is the chameleon as it is now. As you can see, the big picture and the small picture are the same, but the big picture is actually going to change, and just to further show the effect of the color changing. Actually, I'll just play it now so you can see it. Hopefully, you'll see it. Hopefully, that it'll keep it up with the color change. And as you can see, within seconds, it's gone yellowy and reddy and.
So does that mean he's annoyed then?
Well, I'll tell you about that actually. Oops, I'll just close that bit. Let me just stop sharing that. The thing is, let me just go back to that because I'm all confused now. Yes, right. So the thing is, I had always assumed that with a chameleon, the way that the colour changes is down to pigments, so they fire off different pigments, and that's how you get the different colours. And it seemingly a lot of scientists also were thinking along those lines. By the way, it only happens in males. It only happens in male chameleons, the colour changing. But there's a bunch of biologists and physicists who have got together from the University of Geneva, and they've found out that the skin of a chameleon, of a male chameleon, is covered in these cells called iridophores, or iridophores. And these are not new. They've found these iridophores in other species and other animals as well, like the zebrafish has them as well, and it's all been linked. They're all linked to colour change in some way, of shape, or form. But what they've found out, the uniqueness of this study is that they found out that in the iridophore cells on male chameleons, each have embedded nanocrystals in each of the cells, and what it appears is that when these crystals go closer together or farther apart, it affects the wavelengths of light that are reflected. And one of the scientists said the best way to describe it is like it gives you like an oil on water effect. You know, when you've seen a puddle and it's got some petrochemical in it, and it goes that film of rainbow effect. That's the type of thing that it's showing. So what they do have a pigment. They definitely have a pigment that they know about, and it's in their skin cells anyway. And it's a natural yellow pigment of the skin. And what happens is that these nanocrystals in the cells react when they change the wavelength of light. They change the wavelength of light based on the pigment, the yellow pigment. So it's always a color plus the yellow, which gets the change of color. So, for instance, if you've got a relaxed chameleon, the nanocrystals are close together. They reflect shorter wavelengths of light. So the blue end of the spectrum, and you've got the blue plus the yellow pigment, which is equally greeny color. When a chameleon gets excited or antagonized, or he's showing off to a lady chameleon, then the nanocrystals go further apart. The lengthen the wavelength that gets reflected, so the redder end of the spectrum is enhanced, and you get red and yellow and orangey colours produced at that end. But it also, so they've found that out. They've found that thing out about colour change, and they've got these nanocrystals in. So it's like bits of physics and biology together, which is great. How the physicists and biologists working together found this out. Isn't it amazing? But they found another thing out, which is even weirder. And what they say is they've got these iridophore cells that they knew about. They've got two types of these cells. They've got the standard visible light color cells, the pigments and everything, but they've also got these other cells. They think they reflect the infrared spectrum, and obviously that's not for a visual representation. It's for heat. and temperature control. So what they're hoping for, the research project is hoping for that. Obviously, there is a solution to man's problems down this route, whether it be clothing that reflects heat and various other things, structures that reflect heat, and all those sort of things like that. So, what do you think of that?
Very interesting.
Very interesting. Before you mentioned the fact that all the colours are a shade of yellow, I was thinking, can you turn this into a TV? But yeah, just having a yellow screen would be a bit naff. But yeah, the use of sort of like changing building structures to reflect or absorb light would be a very useful feature, obviously to keep cool in the summer and warm up the building in the winter and absorb as much of the daylight as possible. So that would be a really, really good use of that. And possibly, even to make things like, photovoltaic cells more efficient, that sort of thing. So I'd imagine there's a lot of interesting areas to investigate with that.
Yeah, I mean, they're also saying that from the color changing side of things, not just the thermal properties side of things, but the color changing side, they gave some examples of areas that could help, and one of them is they reckon it could help diagnose oil spills in the ocean. Not quite sure how that is. They don't give you any background to how they reckon this. This is just ideas that come off the top of their head. Oh, we could do this. And also detection of high blood sugar in diabetics. Again, I'm not sure how immediately how that works, but it's certainly an interesting area. But so little crystals embedded in.
So I always assumed it would be the same as, I think. You see, like, what are they? Not octopuses. Cuttlefish.
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 Right. Yeah.
That it would be some sort of thing that would be expanding in like little.
Yeah, because you can see the wave of colour go throughout a cuttlefish, can't you?
I just assumed it would be something like that with chameleons. I never actually thought it would be anything different. But I mean, I didn't know that obviously the sort of. With cuttlefish and stuff, they blend into the background, but with chameleons, they don't do that. It is an emotional response rather than a.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the species. I think there is a couple that do it for camouflage, but.
No. I mean, they're saying that is for camouflage, because when they're relaxed and the wavelength changes, it goes more greeny, which is blending into the background. So, when it's antagonized by another male, or it's trying to be obvious, then it goes less greeny and more red, which is more of a sort of like, oh, look at me, or I'm really angry type of thing. So it does work with the camouflage thing.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, there's lots of species. I mean, they don't even all have that ability, do they? It's only certain species have that. But obviously, that's just the well-known ones, and the ones that tend to make pets are the ones that can do it. But
they are. I mean, you've got to be impressed by a chameleon. It's just.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. It's mainly social signaling, though, isn't it? It's mainly courtship.
I think so. I think
males threatening other males and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, which is what you would need. What every every animal at some point in its evolution has had that, where I don't like you. You're being angry to me. I'm angry back. Or, ooh, look at me. I'm really good. Can we mate? Sort of thing. So that's the two main things, aren't you? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So interesting. So I just thought I'd bring that one up. It's been like I said, it's been on the back burner for a while in my pot of little things to talk about, and I thought I'd get it out of the way before some other research is done and wipes it out.
We could do one on chameleons every week, because when you're seeing all the cool features, you missed two as well. The tongue, obviously they've got
the
jets
tongue.
Out and grabs, and they've also got
it's sticky, isn't it?
The gate, where they go like, so that they look like a leaf, so they stop like that, so they look like a leaf blowing in the wind for predators. In the creep.
You should have an interesting. Actually, but to be fair, now we've gone through them all. Now we've done it all.
I'm sure
you can't have an interesting fact about chameleon every week.
The grip is amazing though. You see them where just the two back legs are on the end of a stick, and the rest of the body, including the front, like the whole body is like over, but straight. Just the back legs just hold, just rigid.
Because they've only got I mean, in human things, they've only got like 2 fingers and a thumb type like object, haven't they?
Yeah.
So they've only got 3, but it's like opposable. So they've got those features. I think it's brilliant.
People, when I used to do the business of selling exotic pets, I didn't sell anything this size. Didn't sell any reptiles or amphibians, but I think they've got a similar appeal. Like people like stuff that hunts visually because it's more like us, because we're visual. We tend to like pet animals that are also visual. So I guess that's chameleons are very visual animals, aren't they? They've got very good eyesight, and they look for their prey. So I think that's what makes them appealing as well, and the fact they've got those cool eyes.
So do you know if those eyes do they? I guess it's very hard to work out, but presumably, because you can have one falling forward and one backwards, their brain must be able to take 2 distinct images and process them. Yeah,
I guess so. Must be able to. Otherwise, what's the point in having them separate?
Just be very confused all the time.
Yes. Well, it might be.
Well, no, actually, I'm saying what's the point though, but I guess. Because they're on either side of the head, aren't they? So they're not. So it could be that they do just switch. So they see something out of that one. Maybe the brain function does switch to that one. That'll be interesting to look up actually. Because I'm saying there'll be no point, but there would be a point because if you're being approached, if you're looking out of this eye and you catch something out of your peripheral of this side, and then you switch to that eye, it would still be pretty useful.
Yeah. But also they're not like they seem, and I don't know this. You might be able to expand on this, Richard. But they do seem like they have. Their eyes are in sort of tube-like objects. They're not like if you've got like a standard animal would have a sort of a dome type eye ball, but these are
it's like on the end of a cone sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's
a very small directional field of view, isn't it? It's very tightly compact.
They've also got a I don't know. I think it's probably just the well-known ones. But they have a crest. Have you noticed the ones with the crest on as well? And that's actually not decorative. It looks decorative, but it's so that it when it's in the tree line, it breaks. If you had like I'm not explaining it very well, but if you just had a flat back and you're all brightly coloured, you stand out very much. Whereas if you've got spikes, the view of them is more dispersed into the background. So that's the reason I have them so that they don't stand out as much against the background.
Right. Cool.
They have loads of interesting things about them.
Yeah, tell you, Ross, he's a wealth of information, isn't he?
He is, isn't he?
You know, I was every week I think, why the hell do we get him on here? But little gems like this is why we get him on here. I'm only joking, Richard. We know why we get you on here. We are just
no one else will do it.
Oh. No, he's just got all his synapses are firing, and he's, you know. Have we gone? Have we told the viewers all we know about chameleons now? Is it a time to move on?
I think
so. It probably is.
All we know of any interest, anyway.
Right, so we're towards the end of the show. We've got another topic. And it's Ross. I said at the start, it's a bank holiday in the UK, and the date is the 4th of May. And everywhere, including on Google and everything, we've got May the 4th be with you. And you're going to do something about that, aren't you? You're going to tell us some interesting Star Wars facts.
We have to do something about Star Wars, yes. May the 4th be with you and all that. So anyway, yes, Star Wars. I'm sure everybody's heard of this film.
Never.
No, you never seen it? It's quite good, you should watch it. But anyway, the original Star Wars came out in 1977. The year I was born, good year. And it, I don't think it was an immediate hit, but I think ever since it's become a very, very famous film.
I think it was an immediate hit.
I was going to say I thought it was an immediate hit.
Can I just say that I was alive then. Obviously, you were just alive, but I'd been alive a lot longer than you by that time.
Yes.
And I remember the scenes in the Odeon in Newcastle with crowds
Excellent.
round twice and 3 times round the
Was
whole
that the
box.
first one or the second one, though?
Oh, well, all of them?
Oh, even
All
the
of them?
first one.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's been re-released a few times, and I don't know how much you know about the sort of the fan reaction to the re-releases. So it was re-released in 1997, and it was remastered and put in the cinema as the special editions. And everyone was looking forward to this, and everyone thought, brilliant, Star Wars, whole new generation being introduced to this fantastic franchise. And George Lucas did a lot of things that people were very happy with. And that was things like adding CGI monsters in the background. He made a change to a scene where one of the main characters, Han Solo, in the original one he shot first, and then the remons he made the baddie killed shoot first to try and, lots of controversy. I personally thought the CGI was the worst addition because it wasn't particularly very good CGI. But anyway, they released them again in 2004 on DVD, and again people were thinking, I wonder if this time we're going to get the original ones in high definition, all this. No, they made even more changes, and they actually changed some of the things they changed in 1997.
Changed them back, or changed them
back and changed them again. And they also, because the new ones had been released, I don't know when the new ones were released, the new trilogy I'm not going to talk about, but they changed some of the characters to fit in with the other films that were out at the time.
They changed the characters?
Well, basically there was a bit where it was the original person who played Anakin at the end when they appear as ghosts. They replaced him with the Hayden Christensen, who was the character in the new films, to try and make it, that sort of thing. And then they released them again in Blu-ray on 2010, and everyone was like, I wonder if they're going to have the original ones. No, they're not. They're still going to be the ones. And it wasn't just changes that were made sort of by George Lucas, redoing bits. It was actually the actual quality of the film. They'd used digital noise correction across the whole film. And it caused all sorts of weird effects on fast-moving scenes. There's bits that have artifacts that follow behind, and bits that just look artificial. People's skin looks artificial.
Does the stormtrooper still hit his head?
Yes, they added a sound effect to that now. Seriously, they added a noise to that bit.
So are you implying with this that they made it worse then, or are you just saying they shouldn't have fit, or is the prevailing feeling, I should say, rather than you, do people feel as though it was made worse, or do they just feel as though it shouldn't have been fiddled with?
But both, basically. And those things they added sort of hilarious CGI characters in the background that fell over or something, and it's what's the point of that? But yeah, the general feeling amongst the sort of probably the more hardcore Star Wars fans is that it was ruined by George Lucas.
Well, there's no one forcing them to watch the remake.
No. I mean, this is true. But anyway, I mean, other examples of what they did, the Blu-ray releases, really odd ones. There's a bit where R2-D2's hiding in a sort of a bit of rock, and they've added a bit of rock in front of him, obscuring it. And everyone's sort of thinking, why have they done this? Because firstly, why? And secondly, the hole is now too small for the robot to get in. So it's sort of but strange things like that. And there was loads of picture quality issues, like I say, not just the noise reduction. The blacks for all the black levels were really low down, so dark scenes, you couldn't see any detail. Everything had really odd magenta colouring to it, everyone's skin was really pink. So anyway, loads of people weren't happy about this.
It sounded like what you just described there sounds like exactly the same problems that they had when the original when they started colouring black and white films.
Yeah, they went too far.
Yeah. So everything was really vibrant.
Yeah. So anyway, lots of people aren't happy with this. But this comes to the topic I want to talk about. There's a forum I think it's called the Original Trilogy Forum, where basically people talk about Star Wars. And there's a fella called Harmy, who's a 25-year-old lad from the Czech Republic. And basically he started working on what he called was the despecialized edition of Star Wars. Now I think this is about 5-6 years ago or something he started working on it. And basically what he did, amongst with some other people on this forum, was they basically hunted out the best sources of the film that they could find. And there's been a few iterations of this. Obviously, I think he started this before the Blu-rays came out. But what they did was they got, so that I think it's on version 2.5 of Star Wars now. They got the Blu-ray, because it's the best quality image. They color corrected it all. Then they got the 2006 releases of Star Wars had bonus DVDs that had copies of the theatrical version, but they were from a really bad source. So what they did was they went back to the Laserdisc versions, upscaled those. They also got a copy of a high-definition broadcast, and then some even more bizarre sources like...
Can I just ask, are these guys, are they in the film industry? Are they just hobbyists?
Hobbyists, they're just basically amateurs.
Wow.
They got copies of an original 16mm print transfer of the film, which was really bad quality. But what they did was they used that for the color correction. And basically, I'll add a link to the sort of trailer that they've made for this despecialized edition that has some side-by-side comparisons of like the Blu-ray release and the version they've done. When you see it side-by-side, it's actually amazing how bad the color is. Everyone has like really, really pink faces and no whites or white. But they even got things like original like matte paintings that had been used for backgrounds and scanned them and did transfers and dropped them in.
So these guys did a better job than the whole of Lucasfilm and Industrial Light and Magic and whatever.
Basically, yeah. So the latest version, you can pick it up from your usual torrenting site, because it's of dubious legality, obviously. But it's something like 17 gigabytes, the film. So it's basically a Blu-ray. It has 21 different soundtracks. So it's got like the surround soundtrack, the original soundtrack, one from the theater, different versions of the different
and they're all in sync, so you can switch between them.
Yeah.
Wow.
So basically, this is just a sort of I was going to say obsessive, but I don't think it's obsessive. I think it's sort of people who basically want to remember the film as it first came out, and not this. I don't think they're trying to say that the new versions don't watch them, they're crap. I think they're just saying it's not how the film was when we went to the cinema in the 70s. And they're trying to sort of say they want to preserve the original film. And George Lucas is actually, I think one of the reasons for this as well is George Lucas has basically, what's the word, denounced the original ones. He's sort of come out and said he wants them to be forgotten about, and he wants the special editions to be the ones that people consider the definitive ones.
Cool.
Which is odd, because everyone was quite happy with the first ones, and I don't think anybody wanted them to be. Like I say, some of the. I mean, there's websites out there that list all of the changes that were made, and some of them obviously that make sense. They're fixing bits and that sort of thing. But
you shouldn't fix the bits that were. You see, I don't even think you should fix the bits that are broken.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if it's like
improve the quality, improve the resolution.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's a bad cut or something,
ideally.
But if it's a bad cut or someone's head was not chopped off from the print or something,
that's fair enough.
It's technical errors. But there's things like there's like scenes walking down a corridor in there's the one in the Cloud City. And they've just added a window in the background and then just put ships flying across. And you just think...
Why?
It's just an
Has it added anything to it? No.
Distraction.
And also, I mean, you said that this, it's, is it obsessive? Well, it is obsessive of these guys, but being obsessive is not necessarily a bad thing.
Exactly, yeah. That's why I was hesitant.
Depends what you're obsessive about.
Exactly, yeah. But I mean, it like I say, it's been... This lad's doing the next two films as well, and he's on like version 2 of them, and they're going to come back because there's some other people who are, again, they've got another copy of the original film, which is one of the things George Lucas said, that there was no original copy of the film left. Like he actually, he sort of said, well, we couldn't re-release the original one because no one has a copy, and these people are finding people who have copies. These like anonymous donators are like, well, I've got an original 25mm reel sort of thing. So it's out there if you want to find it.
I guess some of these would be projectionists from cinemas.
Possibly, yeah.
Squirreled them away.
You've kept hold of, yeah. But I mean, I've seen the Star Wars despecialized one I have seen, and it does look amazing. And I think I would definitely say if anyone wants to watch a version, this would be the version to watch. Because I did not like it's the pointless changes.
If you'd never seen them or you'd never watched them with very much interest, would it matter then which one you saw?
It probably wouldn't, no, because you wouldn't know any different. That's the thing. So in a way, I mean, you could sort of think if that's the sort of thinking behind it, okay, let's forget the first one's happened and imagine this is what it was like when it first came out. Perhaps it might not be any different. You might think, oh, okay, that's fine. But you can't do that in hindsight. You can't, especially a film of this sort of magnitude, you can't sort of say, well, okay, ignore those original ones and look at these ones with, special effects in and beasts falling over. But yeah,
I suppose it's an interesting one because obviously it is his film. He created it, but once it's in the public domain, it's the property of the public domain. It's nobody. Once you release it,
he sold it to Disney now.
Right.
Yeah, the whole license has gone to Disney.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of people sort of thinking, well, will Disney, use that marketing opportunity to re-release the original trilogy?
No, Disney will just screw it up. They will.
He made nothing, did he, for like 22 years after the third film, as a director, I should say. I mean, he produced it, but.
Didn't he only direct the first one anyway?
Did he?
So, yeah. Produced all the other ones, wrote them.
Well, we're getting towards the end. We are at the end, really, of the show. But before we go, I've just got one question to ask both of you. Which is your favourite Star Wars film?
Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back for Ross and Richard?
I don't know them well enough to know which one.
Really?
Yeah, really?
Oh, of course you. When were you born?
85.
Oh wow, that's.
I actually saw the newer ones, of awful ones of Jar Jar Binks and all that. I actually saw them before, so I went and saw the first.
You saw them in the right order?
Yeah, I guess so. No, not quite, because I saw the first new one.
The New Hope? No, The New Hope was was episode 3, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I can't even remember
the fourth one that was released.
One, 2, and 3.
Released in the modern.
Yeah.
I saw that first, and then at the time I loved it because I was a kid, and then I came home and my mum had the originals on tape, so then we watched the 3 originals.
That's tape.
And I did enjoy them at the time, but I haven't enjoyed them.
Were you intrigued by this tape medium?
Yeah. But no, it was tapes at the time. I'm not that young, Christ. I remember tapes. No, but then I watched the three films, and I did enjoy them at the time. But I must say that you're talking about when I was 13 or 14 or something like that, and I've not watched any of them since, so I couldn't tell you which ones.
Well,
but it's certainly even then, remember thinking the originals were markedly better than the newer film.
Yeah, I mean the stories were better. I mean, for me, it's Return of the Jedi, but that was probably the first one I went to see. No, I didn't. I saw Empire Strikes Back at the cinema, but for me, it was Return of the Jedi. That's my favorite. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I've seen.
Do you know what it was originally called?
No, go on.
It's originally called Revenge of the Jedi.
And why was that too?
Well, they changed it because Revenge wasn't a Jedi
Yes.
thought process, apparently.
Yes, okay. Fair enough.
Unless it was the new trilogy, in which case it is.
Yeah.
and obviously the Force is all to do with things in your blood and all the things they bloody ruined. Anyway, let's not get on.
I must admit, for me with films like that, when I don't mind stuff being like so out there and outrageous, and I don't mind there being magic and because it's a film at the end of the day, it's a work of fiction. I don't mind there being supernatural powers and stuff. But it's when they start trying. What annoys me is when they start trying to explain them in scientific or meaningful ways.
Exactly.
Like, why are you bothering?
It doesn't need explaining. Exactly. Yeah.
Why are you explaining something in? I mean, I'm not. When they do a film on another planet and all that, and they explore what the physics will be like, that's all great and fine, and they explain. Or if it's like millions of years in the future, and they explain how they got there. But why they feel they need to make 3 films where it's a mystical force and then start explaining it in biological terms? I just think it's daft. It's daft, isn't it?
We've suspended disbelief for like 2 hours where little teddy bears have been running around and knocking over at and stuff like that. And now you're going to say, but the science behind it. No.
Can you imagine doing it with Lord of the Rings and stuff like that and start explaining how it came to be? It's like, it's just stupid, isn't it? It needs a bit of mysticism and to be interesting, doesn't it? Because it's
exactly, yeah.
It's a fantasy film.
Right, and with those words, it's a fantasy film ringing in your ears. We will end this exciting sci-fi tinged episode of The Wonder of Stuff number 23. As always, we have enjoyed making it. We hope you've enjoyed viewing it. If you have any topics that you would wish to cover, then please email them to wonderstuff@gmail.com or visit our blogspot blog, wonderstuff.blogspot.com, or as always, Twitter. Our Twitter handles have been on the screen all evening, and until same bat time, same bat channel next week. By the way, we're back on a Sunday night. So enjoy yourself, and from the Wonder of Stuff team, good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.